go.
Sunday, October the 5th. It's his coffee with Frankie. It's 1000 hours here on the East Coast. And on Coffee with Frankie, this is the coffee. I'm the Frankie. And we usually start the show with a little theme.
Frankie from Flatbush rides the Brooklyn line. Got a swagger sharp like a vintage wine. Everybody knows his name from porch to stoop. Hustling dreams in every loop. In the park he struts, hits the handball wall. Echoes hear the stories when the shadows fall. Got 1,000 tales and a confident grin. On the streets of Flatbush where legends begin. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow. Lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near. He's got the rhythm, everybody cheers. Corner talks and sidewalk chalks his fame. In the Flatbush breeze you'll hear his name. Underneath the subway hum, the magic's real. Frankie's moves got that electric feel. From Atlantic Avenue to the urban hill. Flatbush Frankie's giving you a thrill. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow. Lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near. Lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow. Lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go.
We got NFL football on the television. Phil Adams is here. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Mic check. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Let me know if the mic is okay. Phil Adams is here. Yeah, click the like button on the way in. Why not give this video a like? We could use it. And why not think about subscribing and also the Inner Circle. Join the Inner Circle membership club. We're trying to get the Jets unpaid scouting department going. We got the tools. We just need the people. Bruce Glass is here. Alan Dodds is here. Today is a good day for cow tipping. I don't know why you say that, Alan Dodds. Every day is a good day for cow tipping, although cows are pretty cool. The Cowboys, maybe not, but cows are pretty cool. Jets are going to win eventually. Today is as good a chance as any. Jojo, Frankie, is it possible we're finally getting rid of Jaime? No, it's not possible. We can go into that if you want, Jojo, but my initial, based on the information given in the articles and the way the Jets have responded, I would say, nope, he's not going anywhere. Seems like this is someone trying to extort Woody Johnson, but these are all allegations. We don't know the facts. But from what's been written in the press, it seems like the people that are that got fired don't have much of a case. But again, I'm not a lawyer. These are allegations. We don't know what the facts are. But the way the Jets responded told me they feel confident about their evidence. So we'll have to see, but probably not. No. Now, yeah, Phil is right. Now, if it goes to court and Jaime did something wrong and he's guilty, yeah, then he's out of here. He's going to get fired. But From what it seems like he didn't. But again, we don't know what the facts are. So if it goes to court, if Jaime did something wrong, if Jaime's guilty, then Jaime will be fired, and that'll be that. And these people now look at this Quinshon Judkins person. Wow. But there's a flag on the play. So we do have the Browns and the Vikings going on in Phil Adams' neck of the woods, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with a giant cock on the roof. They've got a giant cock on the roof of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium over in London. Although Phil Adams actually isn't in London, he is in England, but not exactly London. But it's his neck of the woods anyway. And we got another game going on there. It's the Vikings against the Browns. We're going to keep an eye on that over here on this screen. It's currently 7-7. Dylan Gabriel is making his initial start for the 1-3 Browns, and he's looking pretty good. Former UCF, Oklahoma, Oregona quarterback, spent 6 years in college, very experienced, smart kid. And I expect him to do pretty well, actually. And if he does, the Browns have a talented roster, and they have had problems at quarterback, of course, over these last years here. But if Gabriel can run the team sufficiently well, they might be getting out of the ghetto sometime soon. But we'll have to find out. This is Gabriel's first game. He already has one touchdown pass. Is looking pretty good. Looks like he can run the offense as you would expect. He's short. He's left-handed. There's a tipped pass. He's athletic, but he's very smart. So we'll see what he can do. Very interesting game. And Phil says audiovisual 100%. Well, the bell, I don't think you're going to be able to hear. Here's the bell, Phil. Did you hear that? Probably not. Todd says, howdy. Good to see Farmer Todd. Dodester says theme song's 100%. Joe Mike is here. Frankie, if the worst NFL teams are in the ghetto, yeah, then I believe the Jets reside in a lower level. No, they're in the ghetto, but we're in a trailer park in the ghetto. And we got a single wide trailer. If you're going to be in a trailer, Joe Mike, I don't know if you know about trailers. I don't know if you've ever been in a trailer. I have. Not recently, but oh. But if you know anything about trailers, you want to be in a double wide. The double wide trailer, that's the luxury item in a trailer park. We're in the trailer park. We're in a single wide. It's no bueno. It's no bueno right now. Jeremy's here. He says, when someone asks me how many cubes of sugar I want in my coffee, I say, 3 or 4. Yeah, well, that doesn't go well with your diet, Jeremy. Jeremy's supposed to be on a diet, supposed to be getting rid of these carbs, and yet he's throwing sugar in his coffee. No bueno. You either drink it black or you go bulletproof. That's what you do with coffee. You either go black or you go bulletproof. And if you go bulletproof, then you're going to mix it. You're going to blend it. You're going to blend some grass-fed butter and some MCT oil or coconut oil and maybe a little cinnamon. And you blend it, and it becomes frothy and yummy and delicious and also super healthy. That's how you do coffee. That's why we are Coffee with Frankie. Phil Adams says, yes, the Jets will be playing on that very turf next week. Yeah, that's a good reminder. Next week, we'll be in London. I was reminded of that, and I said, oh, great. So later today, I'll be on with Green Bean. I don't know if Jeremy will be there or not. He might be working. He might be giving therapy to somebody. Imagine you go into your therapy session, and you show up, and there's Jeremy, Jed's Chaos. And you're like, Mr. Therapist, I'm having a lot of trouble. And he's like, my alternative name is Chaos. But he might be there on Green Bean's channel. That's 1:00 today. But next week, it'll be 9:30 in the frickin' morning. So I guess no coffee with Frankie next week, I guess. Yeah, there's no way to have coffee with Frankie next week. We'll be having a game at 9:30 with Frankie and Green Bean and maybe Jeremy as well. as we keep track of this team in the ghetto that we all love, known as the New York Jets. Dode says he's with Chaos on the coffee to sugar ratio. Well, to each their own, I say. No bell. Yeah. So this microphone here, so we've been through microphone journeys, as you know, Phil, and this this microphone seems to be the best overall. Although, well, for now. But the problem is it works good as long as I have the settings right on it, which I didn't on the last video. But you don't get the atmospheric sounds, so you don't get the bell, even though it's right here. Here's where it is. Got the bell right here. Chris Havern, straight black coffee is the only way to keep your manhood intact. You gotta grow some balls, Havern says, by drinking black coffee. Yeah. Well, Dylan Gabriel, there's a penalty they throw to Njoku, but I think this is going to be offsides. So what I'm seeing out of Gabriel so far, for those who are wondering about the young quarterback on the Browns, illegal formation they called on the Browns, he seems to be operating the offense pretty well. Seems like he can get things done. He's at least going to be a good backup, I think. Now, the question is, can he be a starter? He's small. He's left-handed. Can he get it done? Well, the Browns are going to find out. So Chaos says, I want more butter and more syrup on my pancakes. Well, I mean, it seems like you've abandoned the diet, I guess, Jeremy, is what you're saying. See, Salami's here. He's a member of the inner circle, and so you can be too by clicking the join button down below. He says bulletproof is the way to go. Yeah, I would agree. Why not get some good fats into your diet? It's delicious. You get good healthy fats into the diet. What's the problem? Healthy fats are good for you. Chaos says I shall be there. All right, so we'll have Jeremy, I guess, on the program. And boy, oh boy, do we got issues. So Dode says 7 o'clock coffee. That's a little early, Dodes. You know what's crazy is now that I'm charting these quarterbacks, and my charting system is awesome, by the way. I'm finding out. And you could have access to the quarterback charting system if only you would join. Just like Dodes has joined, and just like PC Salami has joined, and just like well, that's about it. But just like Dodes and PC Salami have joined the inner circle, and for a small amount of money, you could have this quarterback grading system, which is easy to use and yet tells you so much about all these quarterbacks. Because now on Saturdays, we got to grade out these college quarterbacks because it's looking more and more like we're going to need one in the first round. And so we got to know who's really good and who's hype. Who's all hype, but who's actually good and who's actually bad. That's what we got to find out, and that's what the quarterback grading system does, and it's working great, by the way. So we're figuring out who's actually good and who's actually worthy of consideration and who actually stinks. So so go ahead and join the inner circle. There's a $2 a month option, gets you everything pretty much. There's a $5 a month option, $10 a month option, but for $2 a month, you could have the greatest quarterback grading system, which is easy to use and does all the math for you. Once you just grade the throws, you could have that. It's for $2 a month. I mean, go ahead and click the join button. I would highly recommend it. And you get tons of other stuff on top of that. It's not the only thing you get. So Phil Adams says the wife is away eating all sorts of crap today. Bacon, that's not crap. Black pudding and brown sauce. Brown sauce does not sound appealing. Black pudding, it depends how you make it, I guess. But bacon is not crap. Bacon's good for you. Bacon's protein. We love bacon. Bacon and eggs, probably the greatest breakfast ever devised. You could say steak and eggs. Well, it's 7-7 still now in the second quarter, and crazy Carlton Wentz is quarterbacking the Vikings. Now, the Vikings are supposed to have playoff aspirations this year. The Browns are just trying to get their act in order, but does seem like the Browns had a very good draft this past draft. They got Schlesinger, they got Judkins, they got Isaiah Bond, they got Fannin, they got the two quarterbacks. I mean, this seems like a really good draft class that they had. And then they got Myles Garrett and a bunch of people. They got Mason Taylor. I mean, this was an excellent draft class. And don't forget, they traded down with the Jaguars. So the Jaguars wanted Trevor Travis Hunter, and they are so far 3-1. So I guess you can't really say it was bad for them. And the Browns are 1-3. But at the same time, the Browns seem to have stocked up on a lot of talent. And if only they could get their quarterback situation settled, maybe the Browns might be on their way out of the ghetto. And we'll have to say goodbye to our longtime ghetto mates, the Cleveland Browns. But we'll have to see how it all works out. Carson Wentz with a little drop-off pass to Jordan Mason. Mason Jordan. Never trust a man with two first names. Chaos says, 7 o'clock is early for this show. Nobody gave me the memo. Black pudding is a curiosity to me. Well, if Jeremy hasn't heard of a certain food type, it's probably a little unusual. I think Jeremy's eaten every type of food on earth. The Jets, Joe Mike is here, wants to talk about the roster as per usual with Joe Mike. Joe Mike, you are the most consistent commenter probably on this channel. Joe Mike almost always wants to talk about the roster. He doesn't want to talk about black pudding. He wants to talk about the roster. The rooster. There's a bad throw by Wentz. Joe Mike says, the Jets waiving Isaiah Williams was the right call. Can't take this front office coaching staff seriously if he was out there returning kicks today. Accountability is vital to culture change. Yeah, and plus he sucked. Now, the guy who's going to be returning kicks today is another Williams, Avery Williams. Now, if you go back and look at Avery Williams when he was coming out of college, he was regarded as one of the best kick returners out there. Kick return, punt return, lots of experience, and his college tape has lots of explosive touchdown plays. Now, he got to the NFL. He's bounced around a little bit, but he has been returning punts and kicks in the NFL, not as explosively as when he was at Boise State, but still has a lot of experience in that area. So I think, between him and Khalil Herbert coming in as a running back depth for us with Braylon Allen being injured now, these are good moves, and we'll see if these guys want to stick around. Why didn't we go to Avery Williams in the first place? I don't know. Why did we have to suffer through Isaiah Williams dropping the ball and fumbling the ball and fair catching at the 2-yard line? I don't know. I mean, Avery Williams was out there. We could have had him, and he has tons of experience doing the thing we need him to do. So we'll see how he does, but he does have a lot of experience, so that's good. And Khalil Herbert, of course, is an experienced running back, for depth. He's going to be running back 3, I guess, but we'll see if he's active today or not. He might not be. There's another terrible pass by Carlton Wentz, but he's clapping for some reason. We don't know why. But weird arm angle, overthrew it. This is the Carlton Wentz experience. You get some nice plays, you get some weird-ass plays. That's just Carlton Wentzopoulos, in a nutshell. That one overthrown, no bueno, but still 3rd and 1. So we'll have to see. Jojo says, disappointed in the inconsistency. Well, that's what happens, Jojo. When you start grading these people, you realize a lot of it is hype, Jojo. And you start grading their throws, and it's like, oh, this guy is no good. Why is he hyped up? I mean, look at Arch Manning, for God's sakes. Now, he's not going to be coming out, but still. The top quarterbacks as of right now, could change. And a couple of these guys, the problem is starting experience. But the top quarterbacks right now, it's looking like Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, and Carson Beck. Those are like the top tier. As of right now, could change. when they play more games, especially Moore and Simpson. They don't have a lot of experience, but they're looking good. But a bunch of the other guys are looking bad. Manning looking bad. Lagway had a good game yesterday, but before that was looking terrible. He's probably going back to school. Mateer's probably going back to school. These people, a lot of these people are going back to school, I think. So that's what we have the grading system in place for. So you could tell who's actually good and who's actually hype. Pig's blood sausage. Yeah, we're not having that, Phil. We're not we're not having that. Joe the Jets G. Is there any quarterback the Jets can look at? What do you mean, Joe? What are you talking about? For the draft? Yeah, that's what there's a bunch of guys. We got to wait to see who comes out. I just named the top guys as of now. Could change and will change. But as of right now today. Um so yeah, there's going to be a bucket of guys. We'll see who comes out, who goes back to school, how they perform the rest of the year, so forth and so on. But that's what we're doing, Joe. We're keeping track of these college guys, and that's the part of the problem with some of these. Like, if you really want to keep track of all these college guys, like in a real way, where you're charting them, which is how you have to do it. I've learned you cannot rely on stats. You can't rely on really any. Certainly not highlights. You got to chart their throws. That's the only way to do it, in my opinion. And to do so, though, you got to sit there and watch the damn games, which takes up a lot of time. And then you spend your entire Saturday charting these QBs. I charted 4 quarterbacks yesterday. And then you go to sleep at about midnight, and then you got to get up, and then you got Sunday. So then you got to pay attention to the NFL games. And now the NFL is starting at 9:30. So it's a lot of football, man. It's a lot of football, man. But that's why it is one of the reasons why it is so challenging, and why there's so few good, draft analysts out there. It takes a lot of time and effort. And I'm just doing the quarterbacks. Imagine a guy like Dane Brugler, for example, has to do every single freaking player in the of note in the entire college ecosystem, right? I mean, that is crazy. You really got to respect these people who put out draft guides, like a Brugler type, who look at or Dom C or any of these people who look at all these players. But it's also why they get things wrong a lot too. Brugler's probably the best, but a lot of these draft guys get things wrong a lot too because it's not easy. There's so many dudes. There's so many games. There's so many teams. And then you got to keep your eye on all the NFL teams and what they're doing, what their needs are. How's Dylan Gabriel looking? How's Carlton Wentz looking? If somebody needs a backup, if et cetera, et cetera. As Gabriel gets the ball, short little pass to Fannin. So rookie to rookie. I mean, think about the Browns. Rookie quarterback, looking pretty good. I mean, not great yet, pretty good going against Brian Flores' defense, looking all right. Quinshon Judkins is looking really good. Rookie running back. They got Isaiah Bond. He might be something, but they got this Harold Fannin, a tight end, pass catching tight end, rookie, looks okay so far, I guess. And they got Schlesinger, who everybody's raving about, the linebacker. And they got Mason, the defensive tackle, Mason, what's his name? And, they got all these people. So you have to say they had a really good draft. And it's one of the reasons that makes it hard to draft. There's just so many people. But yes, there's lots of people, Joe. And we got to try and do our best to keep track of them. Alan Dode says, can we stop with the blood and sausage? It's easy to cut guys picked up. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's true. But at the same time, at least they move on from their mistakes, is how I would put it, Jeremy. At least they're not afraid to move on. Like, we screwed up, picked up this Isaiah Williams guy. Oh, this isn't looking good for Gabriel. But he escapes with his enthusiasm and athleticism and just misses the first down. So that rep right there was not great for Dylan Gabriel. Couldn't find anybody going through his progressions. That's not good on 3rd and long. But he does escape a sack, which would have been terrible, and gets out of the pocket and picks up, 9 yards, just short of the first. They're going to have to punt. So while it's not great, it's also not terrible, but that's what you get with Dylan Gabriel. You do get the athleticism out of him, and we'll see how he's going to do as a pocket passer as time moves on. But third and long, can't find anybody. That's no bueno. No bueno. But yeah, I would say about Isaiah Williams, at least this staff isn't afraid to go, you know what, we made a mistake. Let's get rid of this guy and do it quickly. You know what I mean? Previous regime would hold on to a guy forever and, never get rid of anyone. Oh, he didn't mean to fumble it. Let's keep him. I know the character of that man. He's not a fumbleia in his heart and soul. So let's keep him, they would say. This regime says, you fumbleia, get out of here. We made a mistake. No problem. We'll bring in this other guy. Phil Adams says Jets cutting Deadwood is good news. 40+% roster turnover by next season. Well, every year, let's put this in perspective. Every year, there's a 33% roster turnover for every team. That's just normal. So by saying 40 plus, that's a little bit higher than normal. I wouldn't wish for a huge roster turnover either. If you're turning over the roster, then you're starting completely over, and then people have to get used to everything, and then so it's basically another year of misery. At least one. So we'll have to see. Tony Alexio, is Aller the only potential franchise quarterback in the draft? No, in fact, he might not even be a franchise quarterback. Drew Aller was given a grade by the advisory board last year of third round, and they advised him to go back to school. He went back to school, and he has not raised his draft stock. So Aller could enter the conversation, but as of now, he's not in the conversation, in my opinion. Joe Mike, I am wondering why the Jets front office chose Khalil Herbert over Donovan Edwards. I think Edwards is on somebody else's team. He might be on a roster. But ultimately, Khalil Herbert has a track record and Donovan Edwards does not. That's probably why. And also, Khalil Herbert has experience kicking, returning kicks and punts. That's why. So you don't really have to ask obvious questions, Joe. Khalil Herbert has experience. So when you need somebody to come in right away, you want experience as a running back. And then also, he can return kicks and punts for you if you need him to, which we have a problem with. So that's really why. Joe the Jets, gee, any chance Ty Simpson? Yeah, there's a chance. He has 5 games of starting experience. Ty Simpson, I don't know if you missed it, Joe, but earlier in the program, I said Ty Simpson is one of the guys that's in the top tier. He's in tier 1 right now. As of right now, things can change. Keep in mind. But as of right now, Ty Simpson is in tier 1 with a group of about 3 or 4 other guys. So he might declare. His problem is that he's going to have very few games of starting experience. And so that's what he's going to have to weigh. But it depends how he plays the rest of the year. Right now, he's in the conversation. If he starts to play badly, he's not going to be in the conversation and he'll go back. But his problem is that he has right now, as of now, he has 5 starts in college. He has a bunch of other games that he came in earlier, previous years, but he didn't start any of them. So right now he has 5 games of starting experience. He's going to start the rest of the games this year. So he'll have however many games he plays added on to that. But it's going to be a small number of starts. So that's going to be the question with him. Other than that, he looks fantastic. Ty Simpson is looking fantastic. So with him, I don't know how much the experience thing is going to hurt him. I don't know. He could play, and it probably depends how he plays. I mean, if he totally balls out the rest of the year, right, and is just fantastic every single game, and let's say they go to the playoffs and they make a playoff run, and maybe he's in the national championship even or something, we'll see. But then teams will probably overlook the experience thing, and they'll say, "Well, this guy is, he's got everything we want. We're going to hold experience against him." Normally we like a guy with a lot more starting experience, but he's got everything we want. That's going to be the conversation, Joe. But a lot of it's going to depend on how he plays the rest of the year. But so far, so good with Ty Simpson. He's in tier 1 of dudes. Drew Aller's not in that tier at all. Right. As of right now, could change. B Trav says, I'm here listening on my daily walk. All right, B Trav, good to see you, buddy. And it's also good to get a daily walk in, I would say. Walking is one of the best things you can do for your health. So I'm glad to hear B Trav is out walking, getting his leg muscles used. And oh boy, here's Carson Wentz. Holy smokes. And he completes it. And there's a flag. I mean, chaotic Carlson Wentz. I mean, Carlton Wentzopoulos should be Jeremy's favorite quarterback. You got to, I think if your name is Jets Chaos, you have to love Carson Wentz by default. This is the most chaotic quarterback you'll ever see. And there's offsetting penalties. So this crazy ass play where he almost first of all, he almost gets sacked. Then he almost throws an interception. And then the guy catches it, gets a big gainer, and it's offsetting penalties. Mason Graham, that's his name. I couldn't remember his name before. Man alive. You got to love Carson Wentz. Mendoza, yeah, he's in the group. Jeremy, I said. So much fun to scream that out and wave your fist. We got to grab him if he's there. Yeah, he's in the convo for sure. He's in that first group. The Fern Dog, Fernando Mendoza. Also depends how he plays out the rest of the year and so forth and so on. But he's in that top tier with Simpson and Moore and Beck. Right now, they're the top tier, in my opinion. Hank G is here. Good to see Hank G. This is Coffee with Frankie. We're keeping an eye on the Vikings Browns game as we are live. It's 7-7. So Carlson Wentz has had some chaotic play, and they have one touchdown, uh, which was actually thrown by the halfback, and the Browns had gotten stymied a few times on offense and had one good drive where they had a short field, and Dylan Gabriel did throw his first NFL touchdown. So there's that. So it's 7-7. So I would say if you're a fan of either of these teams, it's sort of like, well, I don't know what we got here. The Vikings have a lot of injuries, especially on the offensive line, and their quarterback is the backup quarterback, Wentz. So J.J. McCarthy's still on the mend. So, but if you're thinking about, the Browns fan, though, I think if you're a Browns fan and you're looking around and you're going, we got Mason Graham here. We got Judkins. He looks like a stud. We got all these rookies, Schlesinger, and all these people. In addition to some of the really good veterans that they do already have, maybe the future's looking bright for the Browns. Maybe. Depends on quarterback. Now they have Dylan Gabriel in there. He's looked, okay for his first game. Not great, not terrible. He's looked all right. Here's an end around with one of their wide receivers. I think Thrash or somebody. No, Conley. I don't know who that is. But he's very excited about it, and he picked up a first down. So good job, 83. Brian Goldstein is here, the Goldster. BG, the man, says, does Tony Adams get benched today? Well, let's hope so. I don't know, but let's hope so. Let's hope we can get a little Malachi Moore. If anything, I mean, we got to start evaluating Malachi Moore. I was thinking about this the other day, Brian. At some point, we got to go, all right, Tony Adams isn't going to be here, as an example, next year. So why, at some point, don't we want to get Malachi Moore some playing time so we can figure out what he is or isn't? At some point, it becomes evaluation season, especially if the guy hasn't been performing like Adams. Is Adams going to be here next year and the next year? Probably not. He's scheduled to be a free agent. I don't think we're going to sign him. So he hasn't been playing well. So at some point, you got to pull the plug and be like, let's find out what we got with Malachi Moore. And the same thing goes with Arian Smith. At some point, Arian Smith should become the Z. I think, as Flores' defense sacks Gabriel. It's going to be third and long, I think, now. But why isn't Arian Smith getting more run as the Z receiver? Because maybe Arian Smith could be our wide receiver too, maybe, or three, or what? We don't know what he could be. He's been doing good so far in terms of what has been asked of him, but what has been asked of him hasn't been much. So we don't exactly know what we got with Arian Smith. We're hopeful. Maybe he can be a contributor, hopefully. There's a nice throw by Dylan Gabriel. Did he catch it? Is the question. Decent throw. Let's see if it actually bounced on the ground. We'll find out shortly as they run the replay. Well, they're not going to find out from this angle. No, I guess he caught it. They're letting them run the play. So a nice throw by. Nope, they're stopping it. They're stopping it. Somebody challenging. All right. Well, so it's more Goldstein. It's more about the future, in my opinion, and it's also not just about Adams. You know, really, if you think about it, Tyler Barron should play more then too, to find just so that we can know for sure he actually sucks, which we already know, but the coaching staff doesn't seem to. Yeah, that's not a catch, but that's still a great throw. So, like there in my system, Dylan Gabriel would get a good mark on that throw, but Judy should have caught it, and he didn't. So you shouldn't be penalized for dropsicles in my system, and you also shouldn't get points for like a lot of yak. Like if you throw a 5 yard routine pass and you have a receiver and he runs 95 yards, you shouldn't get, a lot of points in the system for that. You just get a routine throw grade there. But at some point, Goldstein, we got to see about these kids. Malachi Moore, Arian Smith, Mason Taylor getting more reps, all these people, because we need to know who they are so we can build the roster for next year. And hopefully, AG and Muji do a much better job next year building the roster, as we've discussed many times this year. Miguel Andino is here. Good morning, Frankie. Miguel here from Connecticut. All right. Well, do you know that Connecticut is the nutmeg state? Yeah, it is. It is. A lot of nutmeggers out there. A lot of nutmeggers. Yeah, it says 30 unsigned players going into next year. 30. That's a lot. That's a lot. And so we got to think about but also who do we extend? Do we extend John Simpson? Do we extend, certain people? Do we re-sign Josh Myers to be a backup, for example? That's something you could do. Which one of our people do we want to re-sign? Do we want to sign Josh Reynolds to be on the roster? Do we want to sign, got a lot of decisions to make. And a lot of those decisions, what about Quincy Williams? We could extend him for a couple of years, maybe. What about him? There's a lot of decisions to be made. And so, it'll be interesting to see how they build the roster, but hopefully they do a good job. Joe Mike says, Frankie, any truth you were hanging out with Mark Sanchez last night? No, sir. No, sir. Nope. 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 Not me. So anybody that missed it, Mark Sanchez continues to be an embarrassment to himself, his family, the Jets, and everyone else. He got into a lot of trouble. First of all, he got injured in a stabbing event, and then we found out he got arrested while he was in the hospital. Imagine being in the hospital. You're sitting there with machines beeping, tubes up your nose, and a cop comes in and says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Sanchez, but we have to put you under arrest." You're like, "What? I'm in the hospital." He's like, "Yeah, but all the shit you did before was illegal. So we got to arrest you, bud." Allegedly. Allegedly. We don't know all the facts. Everyone's proven innocent until proven guilty, but he was arrested. That's true. And apparently, he was out late. He was drinking, drunk, and allegedly did a bunch of illegal things to another man, including battery, which is no good. So basically, you hit some dude, got into a fight. Apparently went into his vehicle, the other dude's vehicle, for some reason, which is unlawful, apparently. And um, yeah, bad, bad, bad. Butt fumble, getting stabbed, getting arrested. These are not good things, you know. So now it's still 7-7. The Vikings are backed up. So the Browns are not able to move the ball. They're showing a picture of the giant cock on top of the stadium. If you're going to have a stadium, why not put a giant cock on top of it? You know, makes sense. And so this game has been a little uh, unexciting, you might say. As we're closing in on the end of the first half, I don't think the people in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium are getting a good look at some NFL football, unless they like watching crazy, chaotic Carlton Wentz run around. That's a terrible pass by Wentz. Oof. Missed it by 6 yards. Only off by 6 yards, Carlton. Um, so, there's this game. So I would say the NFL got to be wondering what they were thinking with the Browns and the Vikings. Now, as I've been trying to say, the Browns have a lot of good players, but they just don't seem to play good together for wins anyway. I always look at the Browns roster. I'm like, how does this team not win more? And traditionally, the answer's been, well, quarterback. But at some point, you got to get somebody to at least hold down the fort as far as a QB is concerned. Here's Wentz doing his wincing. Oh, now he's running. Now he's getting hit. Now he's down. Well, Wentz, that's the Carlton Wentz experience right there. Escapes the sack, runs 8 out of 10 yards, doesn't get the first down. Puntadero. Boy, oh boy. Joe Mike says the Mendoza Engstrand combo could be very interesting. Yeah. And one of the things that separates me from the other unpaid scouts, so you see on here, I have the unpaid Jets scout. I'm scouting for the Jets. There might be some players that are good for other teams that I don't think would be good for us, for example. So I'm scouting as if I'm scouting for the Jets, like who could be good for us. So I agree, Mendoza, but also Ty Simpson, probably my favorite right now. My two favorites are probably Simpson and Mendoza. Dante Moore is good. He might be the best of the bunch, but he's like a baby. He's so young and inexperienced. But Simpson's inexperienced too, but he doesn't show the games I've seen. So, and then Carson Beck is looking like he's back in the conversation. Looked really good last night. Graded out well. So we'll see. Hopefully there's multiple ones, Joe. We don't want just one. We want multiple quarterbacks that could work out for us because we don't know how the draft is going to play out. Ooh, this is not good. 5-yard loss on a running play. So the Viking defense is looking pretty ferocious. For some reason it's saying I'm signed out of this account. I'm not going to sign back in right now. All right. Hank G with an excellent question. If Jeremy is starting to call himself Jets Discipline, which can't happen, Hank G, he has a tattoo. You understand? The man has a tattoo with the words Jets Chaos on it. He can't suddenly change to Jets Discipline. Would that help turning this team around? I think so. You say just kidding. I say no. You got to put out there what you want. I've been doing some visualizations myself, not about discipline and chaos, but about being a happy Jets fan with a happy winning franchise called the New York Jets. Maybe that'll help. We don't know. Can't hurt. And I think Jeremy should have thought of this before he went and got a tattoo of Jets Chaos, if you think about it. I mean, here the man is sitting there with a tattoo called Jets Chaos. It's on his skin forever. You can't take those things off. It's not like it was done with a marker, right? It's ink and needles and whatever. That doesn't come off easily. You can't just wash it off in the shower. You can't just use lava soap and get it off. It's on there forever. So now he has basically doomed himself to be the chaos man forever. What if he wanted to change it to discipline or, Jets calmness, or Jets laziness or Jets excitement, you know? He's got no options. What is he going to do? Get another tattoo? Maybe what he should do, actually, Hank, is get another tattoo on his other arm that says Jets discipline. That way he's got the chaos and the discipline, both, you know? And then it's sort of like a yin and yang thing. Maybe that's what he needs to do. But I don't know if he's willing to do that. Phil Adams says, "Man, imagine Wentz in a Jets uniform. The watch party." I mean, it's amazing that Kevin O'Connell handpicked him to be the backup for JJ. JJ McCarthy was coming back from knee surgery. That's always can be tricky, any kind of injury like that. And he chose at the end, and he didn't even bring him in the beginning. It was the end of training camp, the end of the period, the end of the process. He brings in Wentz. If you were going to bring in Wentz, maybe bring him in the beginning. Train him up in training camp and so forth. Get him used to everything. But no, he doesn't. Brings him in late, and this is the experience that you get. It's the Carson Wentz experience. He's Wentzing it up. Now, Dylan Gabriel hasn't exactly looked great, but the Browns' offensive line hasn't looked great either. He's looked, I would say, okay. He's facing a very tough defense, although be it without Van Ginkel, who's a very important player for them. But he's facing a tough defense, very first game in the NFL. He's a shorty shorterson, so, he's got the shrimpy thing going on. He's done all right, hasn't looked horrible, I guess you would say. But he hasn't looked great either. He has thrown one touchdown pass, so there's that. X marks the spot, says Sauce got a ball out against Pickens. Yeah. Studkin's the studkin. Yeah. Yeah, he's looking really good. Schwesinger's looking good. Mason Graham's looking good. Fannin they like. I mean, that's a lot of rookies playing well out of one draft class. And then you got the two quarterbacks. Gabriel now in his first game looking okay-ish. Although he just almost threw a pick there. Josh Metellus. That's a very important player as well for Brian Flores, but almost got a pick there. So, I don't know. Gabriel's been kind of mensa, to be honest with you. But it's his first game. I mean, here's a screen pass. This is looking good. But it's his first game. So if you're looking mensa, your first game, and Wentz is now heading back into the tunnel, going back to the locker room, so maybe an injury there. I don't know who their backup today is. Oh, Brosmer. University of Minnesota's own Max Brosmer's their backup today. So we may see Max to the max. So that's good. Judkins the Studkin, yeah. So they got all these people. Can they ever get the quarterback situation stabilized? It's possible that Dylan Gabriel, becomes like a game manager type, which if that's the case, maybe that's good enough for the Browns with the roster they do have. There's a lot of talent on this roster. Joe the Jet G, I'm worried Glenn might pass on QB because he believes in Fields the same way Dan Campbell believed in Goff. This is a very, very scary thought. And yes, it's true. It's very possible that this happens. So that's something we got to monitor. That's also one of the reasons I have the quarterback grading system, because guess who else I'm grading? Justin Fields. And so far, he hasn't really graded out well, even though some of his stats look good. And you could look at the rushing and say, oh, my God, look how much he rushes, But this is possible, Joe. This is definitely possible. And if that's the case, well, we just got to hope that Fields is the guy. That's the only thing we could do if that happens. Now, on the flip side, if this is the case and we have a top 5 pick, that means we're getting one hell of a defender whether it might be Reuben Bain or Caleb Downs or Avril Reese or one of these studs, you know, I personally would go the quarterback route, but look, it depends on how Fields plays the rest of the year. So we're monitoring it closely. Obviously, that's one of the things we're looking at the most in these games. And if you notice, last game he put up good stats, but he didn't really impress to me as far as being a franchise quarterback. I think Justin Fields is at the very least a high-end backup in the league. He's not one of these guys who doesn't belong in the league. He certainly does, and he certainly has certain talents. And he can. And if you have him as your backup, you've got a high-end backup on your team, and that's valuable, very valuable. Fill-in starter. So the question is, can he take it to the next level and become a solid starter? And that's what we're trying to find out this year, Joe. But this is definitely possible. And it's going to be one of those things that we argue over all season and all off season, depending on what happens. Now, if Fields balls out and he suddenly becomes an amazing processor and gets rid of the ball quickly, as Gabriel makes a nice pass there to his tight end, Njoku, the chief, they call him. And Gabriel's now driving the team down. So looking better on this drive than he did previous. It's a nice throw right over. That's a nice layered throw right there. That would be, I'd be tempted to give him great instead of solid there because of how he layered it. But yeah, it's possible. Yeah, and this is very true about Campbell and Goff, and that I thought the same thing, Joe. I thought the same thing. I thought it's possible that Glenn sees in Fields the same thing that Campbell saw in Goff, which is a veteran, a guy you know what you're going to get, and maybe you can improve. He can improve a little bit with time and age and system familiarity, etc. And why waste your time then, with a rookie that you don't know what the hell you're getting? And so it's possible. And look, if Fields plays better and we start winning games, well, then the question is going to be answered for us. And to be honest, it's better to just have the quarterback than have to project. And we could take one of these guys, like maybe you take Drew Aller in the 4th round or something if he drops or something like that. Then it's no problem. I mean, the advisory board gave him a 3rd round grade last year, Drew Aller. So that's why he went back. But all right, so Gabriel now end of the quarter, 25 seconds. They're trying to drive down here. They have one timeout. They just handed the ball off. So probably at 7-7, they probably don't want to make a mistake and just kick a field goal and go in with the lead here. 20 seconds, timeout. But now they have no timeouts. But still, they're close enough where he's going to throw it in the end zone or, basically you can't throw it short of the end zone here if you're going to throw it with no timeouts. You still, 21 seconds is a lot of time. You could still get the field goal team out there, but I think for the Vikings, they got to be pretty disappointed. They're going against a rookie quarterback. Looks like they're going to go into halftime down. They're supposed to have a ferocious defense, and they've held them to 7 points. So that's, and then whatever they get here, touchdown or field goal. So it's not a terrible defensive effort, but they got to be a little disappointed, I guess, with the offense. But on the other hand, their line is banged up. Now he throws one up in the air. See, that's why you don't want to do that. It almost got picked. I mean, that's one of the problems with a shrimpy quarterback. But yeah, Joe, I've had the same thought. This could be the case. Glenn seems to love Fields. Now, we'll see with his actions whether he actually does or if he's just talking up a quarterback. Actions speak louder than words. Right now, he's talking like he loves him up, and that's was kind of the theory going into the season. What if a coach really believed in Justin Fields and put out nothing but positive praise, in the press and all that? And, what could he become? Sort of like what McDaniels did with Tua. Although I would say it was more Tyreek Hill regarding Tua, but nonetheless, that was the idea. So we'll see with actions speak louder than words. And so that's one of the reasons that the quarterback grading system now exists that I've created. And It's partly to judge Fields on his throwing. We already know he can run, he can do certain things. We already know that. But what we need to know about Fields is the throwing part. So that's what we focus on mostly with that. Though it does have the other things as well. I just don't use them. PC says, I think this game in London is one of the few games which will be worse than the Jets game. It's not great. Now they throw to the end zone out of bounds, flag on the play. Just kick the damn field goal already and just get off the field. See, now you got a penalty. Now you're going to move it back. False start. You also got some young guys on the line for the Browns. Jets, Broncos in London still not sold out. So possible there will be empty seats for the first time. Well, that won't be great for the NFL. If that's the case, that will be a negative for their international expansion ideas. And it kind of would go to show that you can't just put any old games anywhere and people will just like them. I mean, there's a novelty effect. They're throwing the ball again. He throws it out of bounds. I'm not sure why we needed to do all that just to take a few seconds off the clock, just to get it to fourth down. But it'll be interesting to see how things like this play out. If, because the last few years and whatever, there's been, some novelty to it. All right. Anybody who's interested in this NFL thing in these areas, whether it be Ireland or London or Brasilia or wherever, those people are, they're going to get excited. Hey, there's something different. Hey, let's go watch it. But eventually, it comes down to actually having interesting games to watch that people care about. And if that starts to fall off, that will be interesting to see what the NFL wants to do. They have these dreams of international expansion and all this because they're trying to expand the fan base, obviously, globally. So we'll see if they reduce the number of games or, maybe take it to different spots. They've been in London a bunch, so maybe they want to stop being in London so much. Maybe they want to go to other places, where they get the novelty effect going, different spots. But it's possible they might have maxed out the customer experience in London. I mean, people don't really. I mean, you have to think about how much fandom there really is in England for a game that there really isn't that much enthusiasm for. Tell me if I'm wrong, Phil, but the European League of Football isn't that popular, which is an American style football league in Europe. They have a France team and a Germany team and an England, a London team, I'm pretty sure. And that league is not that popular from what I understand. And I don't know how it is on the youth scene. Like when kids go to high school in London, are they playing football, Phil, or are they playing soccer? They're probably, I mean, for sure they're playing soccer. But, if you don't hook people young on this sport, it's kind of hard to make them lifelong fans, like diehard fans. Joe Mike said, Edwards on the practice squad. All right, Joe. Lodge your complaint with Darren Muji. Alan Dodes, there's a report the Dolphins, yes, they will. Has no effect on us. And also, he'll probably re-sign with the Dolphins. So he's going to get off. They're going to get off this contract, but he's probably going to re-sign with the Dolphins on a better contract for them. This is a ridiculous contract he has. Alan Jones, does Wentz run a failed version of run around and do stuff? Well, the thing about him is it's not intentional, right? They don't. Their playbook isn't called the Carson Wentz run around and do stuff offense playbook, unlike Josh Allen. Wentz just kind of does that, even though they don't want him to. Like it's so it's not intentional. It's you know, this thing logged me out. Hang on. YouTube logged me out. What are we doing here? But it's halftime now at that for that game in London. It's 10-7. Dylan Gabriel, I'd say mince a mince. Carlson Wentz is what he is. Uh, Something's not clicking. I can't get this thing going. This isn't working. Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll try to get this back up here so we can take a look at it. Yeah. Let me just go here, join live. Yeah. All right. So yeah, so that's the problem with Wentz is he just, he's just bad. That's that's what he should get. Jet Serenity now. Hank G asks about Kirk Cousins. I don't know what they're asking for, but there's a report that there's no interest in the league for him. So EJ says, "What is this Jaime story?" Well, somebody's accusing him of inappropriate actions. The Jets are saying that he didn't do those things, and there's a lawsuit, and we'll find out what actually happened in the lawsuit. From the way the Jets reacted to it, though, it seems to me that former employees trying to extort Woody Johnson for money. But that's just how it seems to me. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the facts. But the Jets are being sued for basically a wrongful termination suit, essentially. Um, we'll see how it plays out. If Jaime did something wrong and he's guilty, then he's going to get fired. If he didn't, then he won't. That's basically what the deal is. But certainly not going to affect the Jets really in any way as an organization. Mad Max Brosmer is in there. Yeah. Joe Mike says, "Well, Malachi Corley's not one of my favorites. I was rooting for him because he was on the Jets, Joe. He's not one of my favorites. I mean, I like him as a person. He seems like a good dude, but he didn't do anything while he was here. And I was not a big advocate of drafting him. But once we drafted him, I wanted him to succeed because we spent a lot of capital. The confusing thing was we thought he was so great that we moved up. We send around those text messages that Sala and Douglas really loved him. So I wanted him to succeed because we need wide receivers. But I would not characterize him as a favorite of mine, Joe. Other than I do like him as a person, and I hope he is successful. Seems like a good dude. Yeah, give me a like. Why not? Coffee with Frankie. It's 11 o'clock now. At 1 o'clock, um, I'll be heading over to the Green Bean channel to do the watch along with Jeremy and Green Bean, et cetera, et cetera. As of right now, I'm just checking the news here. Uh, Rich Cimini is pretty much the only one putting out information. I think the rest of the Jets beat is pretty much depressed. But Schottenheimer's returning to face the Jets. He was our OC back in the day. Red hot Dak Prescott. Yes, we know that. Dak Prescott's really good. Preseason weather for October game. This game will Dallas plays more zone. Yeah, so he's just putting out like basic information, but at least he's tweeting something. So I think the rest of them are all depressed. So that'll be at 1 o'clock. I don't think we really need to wait for the inactives, which come out at 11:35 or so. We kind of already know who's going to be inactive. We have a bunch of injured people. I guess the only thing that would be interesting is, does Jermaine Johnson play today? He was not ruled out, unlike Kene Nwangu was. So we'll have to see. Phil says NFL is still a cult. Yeah, and fans are divided among the 32 teams, but fans of all 31 other teams pretty much hate the Jets. Well, I don't know why. What did we do to them? Usually, you hate the teams that beat you. We don't. Who do we beat? So, yeah, I don't know if they start to see some sort of attendance problems. The NFL might alter their international strategy some. I mean, there's only so much. Maybe there's only so much juice you can squeeze out of that. If these kids aren't playing football, at a young age, pee wee, like we have it here as pee wees and all that. If you don't start getting the American football stuff in your blood when you're a kid, it's hard to really build a diehard fan base. And yeah, people will come out to novel events, and check things out if they're on, if it's a once a year, twice a year thing. Sure, they'll check that out, especially if it's never been there before, the early days. But now it's getting a little bit old hat. I mean, maybe these fans just aren't there just aren't enough of them to have this many games in these locations. So we'll see how the NFL adjusts and what happens. Edutain. Well, Carson Wentz edutain. Well, the interesting thing is this is who Carson Wentz is. And yet Kevin O'Connell, who's thought of to be an offensive genius and a QB whisperer, fixer-upper type of coach, isn't fixing him. If Kevin O'Connell can work magic and just be a quarterback fixer-upper, why isn't he fixing Carson? You might ask. So we'll see. Yeah, probably. EJ says, why is Jaime still around after all these coaching changes? Well, the one side that's been performing is the business side. That's why. So Woody Johnson loves Jaime El High, and Jaime is in charge of the business side, and the business side is working great. So football side, that's a problem. We're one of the most valuable franchises. We go up in value about 15% a year, and plus our cash flows are excellent. So the business side has been performing very well, if you're looking at it from Woody Johnson's point of view. So if Jaime did something wrong with regard to these two people who got fired, then he'll pay the price. But it seems like the Jets don't think he did anything wrong, and that these two people are just trying to extort Woody for money. So we'll see who's right. That's what the courts of law are for. But from a business perspective, Jaime is in charge of the business, and that's the part of the Jets that's been going well. So that's why he's still here. He's the president of the team. So for people who don't know, there's three people that report to Woody Johnson: Jaime, Muji, and AG. So there's basically a three-headed monster below Woody. Jaime's in charge of the business side. AG's in charge of the football, the coaches and the players. And then, of course, Muji's the GM in charge of everything that a GM does. All right. So it's halftime at this London game. There's some sort of concert type thing going on, I guess they're showing. But we'll call it a wrap for this edition of Coffee with Frankie. We'll be over at the Green Bean channel at 1 o'clock. So join us for the watch along over there. And Jeremy will be there. Green Bean will be there. I'll be there. And why not give a thumbs up if you haven't already? And consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And or consider joining the Inner Circle, Inner Square, where we have many different resources, including the Frankie quarterback grading system, which is working great. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. I'll see you next week, and I'll see you at 1 o'clock over on the Green Bean channel.